Imagine waking in the dead silence of a winter storm, when the world outside feels frozen in place, and then hearing a trembling whisper from your child begging for help at 3 in the morning. A father's heart shatters, a loyal German shepherd leaps to his side, and a quiet mountain town suddenly becomes the stage for a battle between love and danger. This story begins not with light, but with a storm, one that will test courage, reveal hidden secrets, and show how far a parent will go to save their child. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And wherever you are, I hope this story reaches you warmly and brings a little courage to your day. Wishing you a peaceful, blessed, and beautiful day ahead. Winter had laid its heavy hand across the mountain town of Marigold Ridge, turning its cedar-lined streets into corridors of ghostly blue beneath the moon. Sleet rattled against rooftops like hurried whispers, and the wind moved through the pines with the low hum of a choir mourning something ancient. Snowdrifts swallowed mailboxes, street lamps flickered under veils of ice, and the town, usually warm with the glow of diners and porch lights, had the hollow stillness of a place holding its breath. In a quiet cabin on the eastern ridge, Officer Rowan Hale slept lightly, as men shaped by grief and duty often do. Rowan was 37, tall but not imposing, with the physique of someone who had spent years lifting more burdens than weights. His brown hair, touched with early gray at the temples, framed a face defined by quiet strength, angular jaw, tired eyes the color of wet earth, and faint scars along his cheekbone from a raid gone wrong 3 winters prior. He carried himself like a man who had learned gentleness the hard way. Slow movements, measured breathing, a voice softened by too many apologies whispered to the dark. His life had once been threaded with warmth, but divorce and distance had frayed him into someone who lived between shifts, between obligations, between memories. The only creature who truly understood him slept at the foot of the bed. Ranger, his 5-year-old German shepherd K9. Ranger's fur was a deep sable with amber streaks along the shoulders, his ears perpetually alert even in sleep. He was large for his breed, with a noble posture, and eyes that reflected a wisdom earned from surviving both the cruelty of criminals and the sorrow that clung to Rowan. Ranger had once taken a bullet meant for Rowan, and since then the two had moved like one being, Rowan the heart, Ranger the instinct. At 3:04 a.m., the cabin trembled as a gust of wind slammed against the outer wall, but that was not what awakened Rowan. The phone on his nightstand buzzed violently, vibrating across the wooden surface with an urgency that pierced the silence. Ranger rose first, ears pricked, body alert. Rowan blinked toward the screen, and every bone in his body froze. Caller, Ellie, his daughter, 7 years old. Bright hair the color of corn silk, a constellation of freckles across her cheeks, and a smile so radiant it once seemed impossible for the world to dim it. She was tender-hearted, but anxious, a child who cried for lost birds and whispered secrets to stuffed animals. After the divorce, she had been placed in the custody of her mother, Lydia, a decision Rowan accepted outwardly, but grieved inwardly every day. Lydia Harper was a woman who had once captivated him, with her fierce intelligence and striking beauty. Auburn hair, sharp cheekbones, a slender frame almost too fragile for her bold personality. Yet stress and bitterness had reshaped her. Years of financial strain and unresolved trauma, particularly the death of her brother, for which she blamed herself, had hardened her temperament into something unpredictable. She had fallen into drinking, into resentment, into the arms of people who comforted her demons rather than her heart. One of those people was Travis Boone, a broad-shouldered man with tattoos curling up his neck like bramble thorns. He carried the swagger of someone used to intimidating others, with a shaved head, a crooked nose from bar fights, and eyes too calculating for a man with no known job. Rowan had seen him once in a courtroom hallway. Travis's stare had been a silent threat, a reminder that some predators never needed to bare their teeth to be dangerous. Rowan's thumb trembled as he accepted the call. He barely got out a "sweetheart" before he heard it, the wind howling through a broken window, the sharp rattle of Ellie's chattering teeth, and breaths so thin they sounded like unraveling thread. "Daddy!" Her voice was a fragile whisper. "I'm so cold." Every muscle in Rowan's body clenched. Where are you, Ellie? At home? In your room? Mommy locked the door. 3 days. I I can't feel my fingers. The window broke. Snow came in. Her breath hitched. I'm sorry. I got hungry. I ate some of Cooper's dog food. Mommy will be mad. Rowan felt the world tilt violently, but he forced his voice into steady calm. Don't apologize, Angel. Listen to me. Lie still. I'm coming to get you right now. Before Ellie could respond, a crash thundered through the speaker, something hard hitting the wall. Then a man's voice growled, I told you not to make noise. Ellie gasped and the line cut. Rowan stood frozen for half a heartbeat. Then the training that had shaped him for 15 years surged through his limbs like fire. Ranger barked once, sharp, decisive, already sensing the shift in Rowan's energy. Gear up, boy, Rowan whispered. We're going. He threw on his heavy uniform jacket, boots, duty belt, and winter gloves. The storm outside moaned like a wounded animal as he opened the cabin door. Snow billowed in, biting at his skin. Ranger leaped into the snowdrifts without hesitation, turning back only once as if to say, hurry. The drive down Marigold Ridge was a battle between metal and nature. Snow swallowed the road markings. The windshield wipers struggled against frozen sleet. But Rowan knew every twist of these mountains intimately. He had driven them during pursuit, during rescues, during nights when despair was his only passenger. The heater blasted, but Rowan still felt cold, a cold radiating not from the storm, but from the terror clamped around his heart. Ellie's voice echoed in his skull like a prayer gone unanswered. 3 days. I'm so cold. I'm scared. Rowan's grip tightened on the wheel. Hold on, baby. I'm coming. Ranger whined softly from the passenger seat, leaning his massive head against Rowan's shoulder for one grounding. Second, that was all Rowan needed. When the truck finally skidded onto Pine Hollow Road, where Lydia rented a rundown 2-story house, the storm had thickened into a blizzard. The porch light flickered erratically, illuminating snow piled high against the siding. No footprints, no movement, no warmth. Rowan slammed the truck door behind him and trudged toward the entrance, Ranger at his side. He banged on the frozen wood. Lydia, open the door! Silence. He stepped back, planted his boot, and kicked. The old frame splintered. The door flew inward, slamming into darkness. The living room reeked of stale liquor and cold air. A broken lamp lay on the floor, its cord twisted like a snapped nerve. Ellie? No answer. Only the wind, slipping through the cracks like an intruder. Rowan didn't hesitate. He sprinted up the staircase, Ranger bounding beside him. Ellie's room was at the end of the hall. The door handle was tied with a belt, tight, deliberate. Rowan's chest constricted. He tore it loose and threw the door open. Snow blew in through the shattered window. And there, curled beneath a thin blanket on the icy floor, was Ellie. Her lips were blue. Her small hands trembled uncontrollably. Her blonde hair clung to her cheeks, wet with melted snow and tears. Daddy, she breathed, barely a sound. Rowan dropped to his knees, scooping her into his arms. Her skin was ice. Not cold, ice. Ranger whimpered, pressing his nose to her cheek. Rowan wrapped her in his coat, holding her tightly against his chest as if his heartbeat alone could warm her. I've got you now, he whispered fiercely. No one will ever hurt you again. The storm raged outside, but Rowan didn't feel it anymore. He carried Ellie down the stairs, Ranger clearing the path with low protective growls. As they stepped outside into the swirling blizzard, Rowan held his daughter closer, the urgency of 1,000 prayers surging through him. He didn't look back at the house. He didn't care who was inside or what awaited him later. Right now, there was only one truth that mattered. He had found her, and he was not losing her again. The storm had grown savage by the time Rowan carried Ellie into the truck, its icy breath clawing at his coat, as if trying to peel his daughter from his arms. Ranger jumped into the back seat first, circling anxiously before pressing his warm body against Ellie's legs, offering what little heat he could. Rowan laid her gently on the seat, wrapping her tighter in his jacket. Her eyelids fluttered weakly, her breath shallow and uneven, each inhale sounding like a thread fraying under tension. He slammed the door, hurried into the driver's seat, and gunned the engine. The truck slid forward, tires fighting for grip against the snow-choked road. The headlights illuminated only a swirling, ghost-white curtain, as if the world beyond the windshield had vanished entirely. "Ellie, sweetheart, stay with me," Rowan whispered, glancing back repeatedly. Ranger whined, resting his head on her chest protectively. Rowan dialed the emergency dispatcher with shaking fingers. A woman answered, Janine Holloway, a dispatcher known for her calm voice and stern composure. Janine was in her early 40s, with dark curls always tied back in a strict ponytail, and a no-nonsense demeanor forged from years of managing catastrophes from behind a desk. She cared deeply for the officers she served, though she rarely showed softness. Tragedy early in her career, losing a sister to an untreated medical emergency, had made her fiercely protective about getting paramedics to the right place at the right time. "This is Officer Rowan Hale. I need a medical team ready at Marigold General," he said breathlessly. "Child hypothermia, severe." Janine's tone shifted instantly from professional to urgent concern. "Copy that, Officer Hale. Trauma Bay is being prepped now. Estimated arrival? 10 minutes if the roads don't kill us." "They won't," Janine replied, voice sharpening with steel. "Not tonight. Drive safe." The line clicked off. The truck barreled forward. Each bend in the mountain road threatened to send them sliding into ravines invisible beneath the snow. Rowan's knuckles whitened on the wheel. He felt Ellie's temperature through the fabric of his coat, far too cold. Ranger licked her hand, nudging her every few seconds to keep her conscious. "Good boy," Rowan murmured, though his voice cracked. "Don't let her drift." The truck skidded around the final turn, and the lights of Marigold General Hospital, a low brick building softened by glowing windows, came into view like a lighthouse in a drowning world. He screeched to a stop by the emergency entrance, flung open the back door, and scooped Ellie back into his arms. Nurses rushed out with a gurney. One of them, a tall man named Aaron Vick, guided Rowan. Aaron was in his 30s, lean, with sandy blonde hair and a gentle smile that contrasted sharply with the storm's fury. He had a calm presence, the sort people instinctively listened to. Rumor held that Aaron had once been an army medic who had treated wounded soldiers in remote outposts, and though he never talked about those years, the quiet sorrow in his eyes hinted at the ghosts he carried. "We've got her," Aaron said, steady but urgent. "Inside. Now." Rowan didn't want to let go, but he placed Ellie on the gurney. Ranger tried to follow, but was stopped by a second nurse, Maggie Owens, short, plump, with round glasses fogged by the cold. She was motherly, soft-spoken, and known for treating every injured person like her own grandchild. "Easy there, sweetheart," Maggie soothed, blocking Ranger gently. "Your girl's safe. You wait for Daddy here." Ranger obeyed reluctantly, sitting but trembling with agitation. Rowan followed the gurney through the sliding doors. Inside, the hospital was warm, humming with fluorescent lights and the sterile scent of disinfectant. Ellie disappeared into Trauma Room 2. Rowan stood outside the glass window, watching doctors swarm around her like frantic angels. He pressed a palm to the pain, unable to feel the heat, but pretending he could. Ranger sat by his boot, leaning heavily against Rowan's leg. After several agonizing minutes, the doors to the room opened and a woman stepped out. Dr. Sarah Keene. She was in her late 30s, tall and willowy, with chestnut hair pulled into a loose, functional bun. Her hazel eyes were sharp yet kind, the sort that noticed everything, even the things people tried to hide. Years earlier, she had lost a young patient due to a parental neglect case mishandled by authorities, an event that had shaped her into someone fiercely protective of vulnerable children. She carried sorrow in her posture, but strength in every word. "Officer Hale?" she asked. "I'm Dr. Keene. I'm treating Ellie." Rowan swallowed hard. Will she make it?" Sarah took a slow breath, her voice steady but grave. "She's severely hypothermic. Her body temperature is dangerously low. She's dehydrated, undernourished, and her vitals are unstable. But she's fighting." Rowan closed his eyes, shoulders sagging in painful relief mixed with fear. She called me. She said she was locked in her room for 3 days. The window was broken. She was alone." Sarah's jaw tightened. "We'll need to notify Child Protective Services." But right now, she needs warmth, fluids, and rest. She asked for you twice before she drifted off. Rowan's heart twisted. Can I see her? Only for a moment. She's still on active warming protocol. He nodded. Sarah pushed open the door. Ellie lay under a metallic warming blanket, tubes taped to her small arms, cheeks still too pale. Her breathing was shallow but steadier. Rowan approached slowly, kneeling beside the bed, brushing her cold fingers with his thumb. I'm here, baby, he whispered. Her eyelids fluttered. Daddy! The single word was so fragile it nearly shattered him. But before he could answer, movement caught Ranger's attention. The dog turned toward the hallway, ears raised high, muscles stiffening. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Rowan stiffened. Sarah noticed too. What's wrong? Rowan whispered. Ranger smells danger. Ranger moved toward the door, positioning himself between Ellie and the corridor. Outside, a security guard, Benji Tolliver, a bulky man with a shaved head and a friendly round face, strolled in, carrying a clipboard. Benji was known for joking too often, but he meant well. When he spotted Ranger's stance, he froze mid-step. Whoa there, big guy. Rowan stepped out to meet him. What is it, Benji? You've got visitors, Benji said, suddenly uncomfortable. 2 officers from County Division, responding to a suspected child abduction report filed around 3 a.m. Rowan's blood ran cold. Travis. It had to be Travis. Benji continued. They're asking to speak with you, and they want to confirm Ellie's safety. Rowan clenched his jaw. She's not going anywhere with them. Benji raised both hands. Hey, Hale, I'm on your side. I know you. But county officers outrank local jurisdiction in custody disputes. Sarah stepped forward, voice sharp. That child is medically unstable. Nobody touches her until I clear it. Rowan looked back through the glass at Ellie, the tiny rise and fall of her chest under blankets, and felt something ancient rise inside him, a vow older than fear. Benji, Rowan said quietly, keep those officers away from this door. I don't care what they claim. Benji hesitated but nodded. You got it. Rowan retreated into the room, Ranger taking position near Ellie's bed like a sentinel forged from muscle and devotion. Sarah placed a hand on Rowan's shoulder. We'll fight this, she whispered. But you need evidence. Do you have any? Not yet, Rowan said. But Ranger picked up a scent at Lydia's place. Something was wrong, something more than neglect. Sarah's eyebrows knit with concern. What kind of scent? Chemical, strong, like the stuff we find in drug labs. Sarah exhaled slowly. Then whatever happened to Ellie? Maybe part of something bigger. Rowan looked down at his daughter, his whole world wrapped in flimsy blankets, and something fierce solidified in his gaze. Then we follow the scent, he said, and we don't stop until we uncover the truth. Ranger lifted his head, as if accepting the mission. The storm outside raged on, but within the room, a different kind of storm was gathering, one born of justice, love, and a father who refused to lose his child again. The storm outside Marigold General had softened into a steady whisper, a white curtain drifting past the hospital windows as dawn crept slowly across the mountains. Inside Trauma Ward. 2, the air was warm and humming with low machinery. Ellie slept beneath the soft glow of warming lamps, her breathing shallow but steadier than the night before. Rowan sat beside her bed, elbows on his knees, fingers interlaced as if holding himself together. Ranger lay curled at his boots, but his posture was not restful, ears twitching at every distant footfall, every shift of air, the instincts of a guardian sharpened into a blade. Rowan had not slept. His eyes were rimmed red, but his gaze remained alert, anchored to Ellie, as if watching her breathe could keep her tethered to this world. The memory of the county officers in the hallway still tightened his chest. He knew Travis would escalate. Men like him never relinquished control willingly. But before Rowan could drown in thought, a soft knock tapped against the partially closed door. Rowan stiffened until he recognized the figure entering. Nurse Maribel Cruz, one of the overnight pediatric nurses. Maribel was in her early 40s, short with warm brown skin, round glasses, and dark hair streaked with silver, pulled into a neat bun. Her movements were always gentle, almost mother-like, though her eyes held a depth of exhaustion that hinted at years of tending to children in crisis. A rumor among the staff whispered that Maribel had once lost her own child to illness decades ago, a grief that had shaped her into the kind of nurse who noticed pain before a word was spoken. She approached Ellie's bedside with the quiet grace of someone entering a sacred space. "She's warmer now," Maribel said softly. "Another hour on active warming, and we'll reassess." "Thank you," Rowan murmured, "for everything." She placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. "Children fight hardest when someone is fighting for them," she said, then adjusted Ellie's IV line with practiced care. Ranger lifted his head, sniffing Maribel's hand, and she smiled faintly, giving him a gentle scratch behind the ears before stepping out. A few moments later, the rattling of a cart echoed down the hallway. Rowan glanced up as another staff member appeared, Harvey Dale, the elderly janitor who had worked at Marigold General longer than any nurse or doctor still on payroll. Harvey was in his late 60s, with a hunched frame, wiry arms, and thin white hair combed backward with meticulous precision. His blue coveralls bore the stitched name, H. Dale, and his face was a weathered map of years fighting lung conditions from chemical exposure at a factory job he'd once held. He coughed lightly as he passed, pushing the cart, giving Rowan a sympathetic nod but not intruding. Harvey was known for being quiet, observant, and fiercely protective of hospital staff. Rumor said he once chased away an intoxicated visitor with nothing but a mop handles and terrifying determination. Rowan returned the nod, grateful for the presence of familiar people in a world shifting too fast beneath his feet. But just as Harvey disappeared around the corner, Sarah Keene strode into the room with a tablet in hand, her features sharpened by the morning light. Her bun had loosened, leaving strands of hair framing her face, and the soft circles beneath her eyes betrayed her sleepless night. "Morning," she greeted, though her tone carried more resolve than warmth. "Ellie's vitals are improving, but she's still fragile." Rowan looked up. "What do you need from me?" Sarah hesitated before speaking. "Child Protective Services will want to interview her, probably today. They'll also want to talk to you. I'm trying to stall them, but with the report filed by county officers..." Rowan rubbed a hand across his jaw. "Travis is manipulating the system. If CPS takes her before I can prove what happened..." "They won't," Sarah interrupted. "I'll make sure they understand her condition. But you need more than my testimony." She lowered her voice. "You need evidence, solid evidence, something indisputable." Rowan leaned back, exhaling harshly. Ranger caught a scent at the house. Chemical, pungent. It might be connected to the stolen supplies from Birchwood Farms. Sarah nodded slowly. "Then you should follow it." Rowan glanced at Ellie. "I can't leave her." Sarah's expression softened, then hardened with decision. "I'll stay with her. She won't be alone." Ranger barked once, as if in agreement, or perhaps impatience. Before Rowan could answer, another knock sounded. This one was firmer. Rowan tensed again. The door nudged open, revealing Officer Dean Maddox from Marigold Police Department, a colleague Rowan had worked with for over a decade. Dean was around Rowan's age, broad-shouldered, with a dark beard, tired blue eyes, and the easy slouch of someone who had spent too many overnight shifts living on vending machine coffee. He had a reputation for loyalty, though his judgment sometimes suffered under pressure. "Hale," Dean said, stepping inside and shutting the door behind him. "Heard county's giving you hell. Figured you could use a friend." Rowan's guard lowered slightly. "Good to see you, Dean." Dean nodded toward Ellie. "Poor kid. No one deserves this." Then, lowering his voice further, "I did some digging. You remember Birchwood Farms? They filed another report last night. More chemicals missing. And, this is the kicker, someone spotted a man matching Travis Boone's description near the North Silo 3 days ago." Rowan's jaw tightened. "That lines up." "There's more," Dean added grimly. "County Division is looking for you. Travis called them again this morning. Claimed you broke into Lydia's house with intent to harm him." Rowan laughed bitterly. "He'll say anything to avoid exposure." "Exactly why you need to stay one step ahead," Dean replied. "Give me permission to check the farm's security feed. Maybe Travis messed up somewhere." "Yes," Rowan said immediately. "Do it." As Dean left, Ranger sprang up suddenly, ears erect, body angled toward the window beside Ellie's bed. Rowan followed his gaze instinctively. Outside the glass pane, someone stood at the far end of the hallway, half hidden behind a protruding wall. A woman, dark coat, hood up, posture rigid. When she noticed Rowan looking, she turned sharply and vanished around the corner. "Who was that?" Rowan muttered. Sarah frowned. "Visitor hours haven't started yet, and no one is allowed on this floor without clearance." Rowan stood, heart pounding, but Sarah placed a hand on his arm. "Let me check the hallway. You stay with Ellie." She stepped out briskly. Ranger whined softly but remained at Ellie's bedside, unwilling to leave her unguarded. Minutes stretched. Rowan resumed his seat, brushing stray strands of Ellie's hair from her forehead. He didn't notice the subtle movement until Ranger growled. The growl was low, controlled, the kind he used when danger crept close. Rowan followed Ranger's stare to the door, where an envelope had been slid beneath it. Rowan froze. The envelope was plain, unmarked. He leaned forward and picked it up carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in uneven block letters. "Stop digging, or you won't like what you find." Beneath the message was a small smear of something dark, dirt, or oil, or something worse. Ranger snarled. Rowan's pulse thundered. Whoever had delivered this had been inside the hospital, inside the secured pediatric wing. His grip tightened around the paper. Not fear, fuel. Sarah returned a moment later, breath visible from alarm. "There was no one in the hall when I got there," she said. Rowan held up the note, her face blanched. "This is a threat." "It's confirmation," Rowan corrected. "We're pulling on the right thread." He looked at Ranger, whose stance had changed, not tense now, but ready. "I need to follow the scent Ranger found, and I need to find out what's hiding in that house." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Go. Dean and I will watch over Ellie. She won't be alone, I promise." Rowan bent over Ellie one last time, kissing the top of her head. "I'll be back soon, baby. I'm not going anywhere." Ranger pressed against his leg, tail stiff, eyes burning with purpose. Together, they stepped into the hallway, into the quiet storm of consequences and truths waiting at the edges of Marigold Ridge. The morning light over Marigold Ridge was thin and brittle, a pale sheen struggling to break through the lingering storm clouds. The world outside the hospital felt hollowed out, muffled by snowdrifts that lined the streets like unspoken warnings. Rowan stepped into the bitter air with Ranger at his side, the German shepherd moving in long, purposeful strides. Rowan inhaled deeply, centering himself. Ellie was safe for the moment, surrounded by Sarah, Maribel, and Dean. But every instinct in him screamed that time was a fragile thing, easily broken. Whoever had left that threatening note inside a secured wing of the hospital had nerve, skill, and access. And that meant the danger was far more organized than he originally feared. The police truck rumbled to life, tires crunching over the packed snow. Ranger sat tall in the passenger seat, ears forward, amber eyes fixed on the horizon with military focus. "All right, boy," Rowan murmured. "Let's go back to where this started." They headed toward Pine Hollow Road, the outskirts of town, where Lydia's rental house stood like a forgotten relic. The storm had buried half the front porch by now. Rowan killed the engine and stepped out, boots sinking into the deep snow. Ranger bounded ahead, nose low, as if he had never left the scene. The house looked worse in daylight, window frames cracked, siding peeling, roof sagging beneath winter's weight. Rowan hesitated at the threshold, remembering Ellie's trembling voice, but Ranger growled softly, then moved toward the side of the house, following the scent he had discovered the night before. Rowan followed him around the corner, where something caught his eye, faint, uneven footprints leading toward the woods. Not child-sized, adult, heavy, and not softened by snow, suggesting they were made just before dawn. "Travis," Rowan whispered, but the footprints didn't match the large, aggressive stride Rowan associated with Travis. These were shorter, slower, limping slightly. Someone else had been here. Ranger whined and nosed the ground more intensely. Rowan crouched beside him, just as the back door of the house creaked. Rowan reached for his holster instinctively. A figure stepped out, slow, fragile, wearing a thin sweater far too light for the cold. Lydia. She looked hollow, her once bright auburn hair oily and tangled, falling across a gaunt face. Her eyes, rimmed with exhaustion, darted around as though hunted by ghosts. Lydia Harper had once been a woman who commanded a room, Not with volume, but with elegance. She had been intelligent, articulate, fiery. But the woman now approaching Rowan looked like a fragile shell of her former self. "Rowan," she rasped, arms wrapped around herself. "You shouldn't be here." Rowan's gut twisted. "Ellie almost died, Lydia." Lydia flinched as if struck. Tears welled, but she blinked them back. "I didn't lock her in. Travis, I didn't know he—" Her voice cracked. Ranger growled, sensing the chaos in her scent. Fear, guilt, adrenaline. Rowan stayed cautious but lowered his hand from his holster. "Where is Travis now?" Lydia hesitated, eyes flicking toward the woods. He left before dawn. Said he had business. Said if I said anything, he'd—" She swallowed hard. "He's not just dealing with petty things, Rowan. He's working with people who don't forgive mistakes." Rowan stepped closer. "Lydia, listen to me. Ellie told me she'd been locked in her room. She was freezing, starving." Lydia collapsed to her knees in the snow, as if the weight of her choices had finally crushed her. "I didn't know he barricaded the door. I thought she was safe. I thought—" Her words dissolved into sobs. Rowan knelt beside her, torn between anger and sorrow. "Why didn't you ask for help?" Lydia stared at the snow. "Because asking for help means admitting I lost control, and Travis doesn't let me admit anything." Ranger nudged Lydia cautiously, sensing her distress. Lydia reached a trembling hand toward his fur, but stopped halfway as if believing she no longer deserved comfort. Rowan's throat tightened. Lydia had made terrible choices, but she was also a victim in a way neither he nor Ellie had fully understood. Before Rowan could speak, Ranger stiffened. His entire body froze, muscles coiled, tail raised. He stared toward the tree line behind the house. Rowan followed his gaze. At first, he saw nothing but dense pines. Then, a flicker of movement. Someone watching. "Inside!" Rowan hissed. "Now!" Lydia stumbled to her feet. Rowan pushed her through the back door, as Ranger stayed at the threshold, snarling at the hidden presence. But the figure vanished into the woods like smoke. Rowan shut the door behind them. The inside of the house was even worse than he remembered. Empty bottles, dirty dishes, blankets piled in corners. Lydia wiped her eyes, ashamed. "They came here last night," she whispered. Rowan's pulse thudded. "Who?" Lydia's lips trembled. "Travis and some men I didn't know. They brought crates, heavy ones. They took them down to the cellar. I wasn't allowed near." Rowan stood immediately. "Show me the cellar." Lydia's face drained of color. "He said if anyone saw—" "Ellie almost died," Rowan snapped, more sternly than he intended. Lydia flinched but nodded. She led him to a door near the kitchen, half hidden behind a shelf. Rowan moved the shelf aside. Ranger sniffed the edges, nose wrinkling at a chemical odor sharp enough to sting. Rowan slowly opened the cellar door. Darkness swallowed the staircase. The air rising from below was thick with cold and dampness. And something else. Something metallic. Something poisonous. Rowan flicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the black. Wooden steps descended into a narrow basement lined with concrete walls. And at the bottom, scattered crates stamped with a red symbol. Rowan recognized from Birchwood Farm's stolen inventory reports. "Chemical storage," Rowan muttered. "Industrial-grade solvents, highly flammable." Ranger growled again, this time deeper. Rowan lifted the light more. Behind the crates stood a makeshift table covered in tools, funnels, plastic tubing, a small burner, and bags of white powder. Rowan's stomach dropped. "Drug processing," he whispered. "Not small scale. This is manufacturing." Lydia sank against the wall, trembling violently. "I didn't know. I swear. Travis told me never to come down here." Rowan lifted a crate lid. More chemicals. Enough to supply a small cartel. Enough to kill Ellie 10 times over if the fumes had leaked into the floorboards. A sudden sound echoed above them. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Rowan motioned Lydia behind a support beam. Ranger lowered himself, muscles taut. Someone was in the house. The footsteps moved across the kitchen floor, slow but confident. Then a man's voice drifted down the stairs, casual and cold. "Lydia? You down there?" Ranger bared his teeth. Rowan's blood went ice cold. Travis Boone. And he was alone. Or confident enough to sound alone. Travis began descending the stairs. The dim figure emerged into the flashlight beam, a tall, broad-shouldered man with tattooed forearms, a shaved head glinting beneath the light, and a smirk carved across his face. His dark jacket hung open over a sweat-stained shirt, and his cold eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. "Well," he drawled, "aren't we having a little party?" Rowan stepped forward just enough to shield Lydia. Travis blinked, then grinned. "Officer Hale, should have known you'd stick your nose where it doesn't belong." Rowan's hand hovered near his holster. "Step away from the crates." Travis chuckled, the sound low and mocking. "You think you can walk in here and shut this down? You don't even know who you're dealing with." Ranger snarled, stepping forward. Travis glanced at the dog with disdain. "Call off your mutt." "Not a chance," Rowan said. Travis spread his arms casually, but the tension in his frame betrayed him. "You know, Rowan, all you had to do was hand the girl back. But now," his smile vanished, "now you've made this a problem." Lydia gasped softly behind Rowan. Rowan stood tall, every muscle prepared. "The only problem here is you." Travis tilted his head. "You won't walk out of this house with evidence." Rowan didn't blink. "I don't intend to walk out. I intend to drag you out in cuffs." Ranger growled louder, weight shifting in readiness, and beneath the cracking beams of the rotting ceiling, in a dim cellar filled with poison and secrets, the storm that had begun outside Marigold Ridge finally broke inside the Harper house. The cellar felt smaller as Travis stepped off the last stair, the dim light casting jagged shadows across his tattooed arms. The chemical fumes clung to the air like poison waiting to bloom. Rowan positioned himself between Travis and Lydia, while Ranger stood planted at Rowan's side, hackles raised, body rigid. One paw slightly lifted the way he did when preparing to lunge. Travis smirked as if amused by their fear, though a glint in his eyes betrayed a restless, simmering anger. He descended another step, boots thudding like war drums against the wooden stairs. "You really screwed up coming here, officer." Rowan held his stance. "Ellie almost died. You crossed the line the moment you touched that child." Travis clicked his tongue. "Always so noble. That's your problem. You think every scared little girl deserves saving." Rowan felt Lydia flinch behind him at those words. Travis turned slightly toward her, sneering. "Did you tell him? How you begged me not to leave? How you said you couldn't survive without me?" Lydia shook her head, trembling. "That's not... Rowan, I didn't..." Rowan touched her arm gently. "You don't have to explain anything right now." Travis laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Pathetic," he snarled. "Both of you." Ranger's growl deepened. Rowan steadied himself. "Travis, it's over." "Over?" Travis spread his arms. "You found a basement? Congratulations. But you haven't met the men upstairs yet." Rowan blinked. "Upstairs?" Travis shrugged with a grin too relaxed to be a bluff. "Well, not here upstairs, but at the North Line. You know the place, where Birchwood shipments disappear. They don't like cops snooping around." Rowan's pulse hammered. Travis wasn't working alone. He was tied to something wider, something darker. But before Rowan could process the warning, Ranger lunged half a step toward the stairs, ears shooting forward, teeth bared. A second set of footsteps echoed above. Slow. Heavy. "Stay behind me," Rowan hissed to Lydia. Travis smiled, leaning casually on the railing. "Looks like one of the boys decided to stop by." The cellar door creaked open. A man descended halfway. Cal Rourke, a courier Rowan recognized from several prior arrests. Wide shoulders, sunken cheeks, and dark hair shaved close to the scalp. He had a crooked jaw from a bar fight years earlier, and a habit of tilting his head when thinking, which gave him a strange bird-like appearance. His eyes were small, twitchy, always calculating whether flight or violence was preferable. Cal paused when he spotted Rowan. "Ah, hell," he groaned. "We have company?" "Yep," Travis replied. "Our favorite Boy Scout came snooping." Cal eyed Ranger uneasily. "The mutt, too." "Careful," Rowan warned. "He's trained to take down threats." "You calling me a threat?" Cal scoffed, descending another step. "I just came to grab the crates." Rowan stiffened. That meant the operation was still active. They were expecting to move product today. And if Rowan didn't stop them now, evidence could vanish before morning. Travis leaned in closer, voice dripping with menace. Cal, you want to explain to our friends why the cop is here? Or should we handle this the easy way? Easy way, Rowan asked. Yeah, Travis grinned. You're outnumbered. Rowan's hand hovered near his holster, but he didn't draw yet. Drawing too early could push Travis into a frenzy. Suddenly, another voice echoed from the top of the stairs, female, shaky, and terrified. Stop! Lydia gasped, stepping out from behind Rowan. Travis, please, just let him go. Lydia! Rowan grabbed her arm, but she shook him off with surprising force. If you hurt him, they'll take Ellie away. Her desperation cracked like broken glass. Travis rolled his eyes. Why do I even bother with you? Cal sneered. Let me take care of it. He reached into his jacket. Ranger exploded into motion. Rowan barely had time to shout before the dog launched himself up the stairs, slamming Cal backward. The man tumbled, crashing against the wall as Ranger pinned him with brutal efficiency, growling deep and low, just one breath away from tearing straight through the fabric of Cal's jacket. Cal froze under the weight of the trained K9, face twisted in fear. Travis lunged forward, but Rowan drew his firearm in a single swift motion. Don't move! The command thundered through the cellar. Travis froze mid-step, fury blazing in his eyes. Ranger kept Cal pinned, teeth inches from his throat. Rowan kept his weapon trained squarely on Travis. His voice held no hesitation, only years of training and the raw desperation of a father fighting for his child. Travis Boone, step back and put your hands where I can see them. Travis laughed unhinged. Oh, you think this ends with cuffs? You're delusional. The moment I disappear, my friends come looking. And guess who they're gonna blame? Rowan's jaw tightened. Not my problem. It will be, Travis hissed. Footsteps thundered across the floor above them. More than one pair. Ranger growled louder, eyes flicking toward the ceiling. Lydia paled. They're here. How many? Rowan demanded. Lydia's lips quivered. 3, maybe 4. Travis told them you'd come eventually. Rowan exhaled through clenched teeth. Ranger, off. Ranger obeyed instantly, stepping back from Cal but maintaining a threat posture. Cal scrambled to a corner, clutching his bruised arm. Rowan kept his weapon on Travis. All right, Rowan said in a low voice. We're walking out of here, all of us. You can't protect her, Travis snarled. Or your daughter. Rage flared through Rowan so sharply it nearly blinded him. You don't get to say her name. He grabbed a zip tie from his belt and forced Travis to the ground. He tightened it around both wrists. A booming voice echoed from upstairs. Boone, you down there? Travis grinned defiant triumph. Rowan whispered to Lydia, hide behind the crates, stay low. Lydia obeyed instantly, vanishing behind a row of chemical barrels. Rowan grabbed Cal roughly and shoved him near Travis. Ranger positioned himself in front of Rowan, body angled slightly. A strategic stance for defense. The footsteps descended. 3 men, all armed. Rowan felt adrenaline slam into his bloodstream. The first man appeared, Eric Sloan, tall with a salt and pepper beard and eyes like chipped stone. Eric was a former trucker-turned-smuggler, his burly build suggesting he was used to hauling crates for hours. The second was Miles Ketch, a skinny, rat-faced youth with tattoos crawling up his neck and shaking hands, likely from substance use. The third man, Rowan didn't recognize, a hulking figure with a shaved head, thick beard, and scars ringing both knuckles. The stranger radiated violence the way cold radiated from snow. Eric squinted at the scene. What's this? Travis spoke quickly, voice dripping with smug confidence. Arrested. He wants to take the product. Rowan stepped forward. Leave now, or this gets ugly. Eric scoffed. 3 of us, 1 of you. Rowan smiled grimly. 1 of me, 1 trained K9, and 1 set of explosives waiting to ignite if a single bullet hits the wrong crate. Eric froze. Explosives? Rowan nodded at the chemical crates. Industrial solvents, highly flammable. Shoot anything down here, and we all go up. The 3 men hesitated, calculating risk. Ranger's low growl filled the silence. Then Eric slowly raised his hands. "We walk." "Not a chance," Rowan replied. But then a voice shouted from outside. Sirens, multiple units. The men panicked. Eric bolted up the stairs, Miles following. The hulking stranger tried to drag Travis, but Rowan tackled him into a crate. Ranger leaped, biting down on the man's sleeve and pulling him off Rowan. Moments later, the cellar door burst open. Officer Dean Maddox charged down the stairs, with 3 uniformed officers behind him, weapons drawn. "Rowan!" Dean shouted. "We tracked Cal's burner phone. Reinforcements are here." The remaining criminals were subdued. Travis spat curses as Dean cuffed him. Rowan finally allowed his breath to steady. Ranger pressed himself against Rowan's leg, tail wagging faintly as if sensing relief. Lydia emerged from behind the crates, shaking but alive. Rowan holstered his weapon and glanced around the chaotic cellar. "It's over," he whispered. For the first time, it truly was. In the quiet moments after the storm, when the danger has passed and the light returns, we are reminded of a truth that never fades. God works in ways we cannot always see. Sometimes his miracles come through the strength of a father, the loyalty of a faithful dog, or the courage found in the smallest heart. And sometimes he meets us in the darkest valleys to lead us gently back toward hope. This story teaches us that no matter how heavy the night feels, love and faith will always guide us home. In our own lives, we face storms too small, fears, quiet battles, hidden pain, but God remains steady. When we choose compassion, when we choose to protect one another, we become part of his miracle. If this story touched your heart, please share it so others may find encouragement today. Leave a comment to tell us your thoughts, and remember to subscribe for more stories filled with love and hope. And if you believe that God still brings light into broken places, write amen in the comments. May God bless you and your family with peace, protection, and a gentle miracle of your own today.